to Ration Book Recipes. I am passionate and extremely angry about society, so I'm going to try and keep the vibes here like fun and light-hearted, but as I am making this video, please know that I am like one Molotov cocktail away from revolution. That's true all the time. Sometimes one normal cocktail. Today's theme is fuel rationing. For context, we've just seen our energy bills go up by like 54% here in the UK, and they're going to rise again in autumn. Sorry if you didn't know about that. So this unfortunately feels necessary. Except that the reason is not like, let's all do our bit for the war effort. It's very much like corporate profiteering. Just so we're clear. This is going to be a long one. I got really into the history of pressure cookers. One thing that's really noticeable looking through wartime recipes is that there's a lot of really long, slow cooking involved. Things like steamed puddings, stuff that takes several hours to cook. I could be dead in 4 hours. Which today feels really counterintuitive because you have all these really cheap and accessible ingredients, but like in modern times we don't really leave the oven on for several hours at a time, like let alone all day. Like not on purpose. The thing about this style of recipe is it really feels like a hangover from the day of coal-fired ranges, which would basically be lit all day. A coal range is something that you have to keep checking on and kind of plan ahead to bring it up to heat when you need it. So it really is most like a modern Argo where you may as well cook something long and slow because it's going to be on anyway. By the late 30s, early 40s, most modern households have switched over to gas and electricity. It uses a lot less coal, it's considered a lot cheaper. All the same, there is still plenty of wartime propaganda posters emphasising how important it is to save fuel. So today I'm trying a few wartime methods and some modern day approaches to some ration book recipes. So one of the big new home gadgets was the pressure cooker. These had existed before, but they got a big boost in 1939 when the Presto pressure cooker was unveiled for home use at the New York World's Fair. Wartime food writer Marguerite Patten wrote that the new small pressure cookers, known as pressure pans, caused a sensation. The idea of being able to cook a stew in minutes rather than hours was much appreciated. There were still severe fuel cuts and we were urged to save fuel, which of course was possible with the shorter pressure cooking times, and wrote the first pressure cooking book for Harrods. This is a stovetop pressure cooker. We do now have electric ones, such as Instant Pots. I have been reading food blogs for like the last 84 years, and it's only been in the last 2 months that I learned what an Instant Pot actually was, because Americans love to refer to things by brand names instead of actual names. It's very confusing. So like I kept seeing posts that were like, throw this in your Instant Pot, ideas for your Instant Pot, and I would just be like in my, what? Like, what in the magic porridge pot are you imagining my kitchen situation to look like? I'm a big fan of, what's the word for not technological? Acoustic? Basically, if you can buy something that doesn't have a computer in it, buy something that doesn't have a computer in it. So like an Instant Pot, the estimated lifespan of that is like 5 years. If you buy something that is basically a pan with a lid on it, that's going to last you 40 years. And worst case scenario is I have to replace the gasket on this a couple of times. I digress. I mostly use this for like soup and stews and curries and so on, but I wanted to tackle a really classic like 1940s style recipe to really cut down the cooking time on that. So the first recipe I'm making today is an eggless steamed syrup pudding. This is 6 ounces or 170 grams of plain flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and a pinch of salt, getting rubbed in with 1.5 ounces or 40 grams of margarine. I'm adding in another 40 grams of sugar, and then it says enough milk or water to bring it to a dropping consistency. It's about half a cup or 125 ml. So I'm putting in a couple of tablespoons of golden syrup. You can also do a version with jam at the bottom of this pudding basin. It says 2 tablespoons, like we all know I'm going to ignore that, because more golden syrup is always better. I'd also recommend adding a bit of lemon zest or juice to this, which isn't in this particular recipe, but that's how I've usually made syrup pudding in the past. And the batter goes on top of that. This particular recipe just says cover with lid and steam. It's kind of assuming you're familiar with steaming puddings. In case you're not, I'm covering this with greaseproof paper and tie it round. You can also use greased foil that's kind of tightly scrunched around it, or if you have a metal pan lid that fits on directly. So this would ordinarily steam for like an hour and a half. We're obviously not going to do that. Time is literally money. The basic rule of thumb for using a pressure cooker is that you can usually like halve or even a third of the normal cooking time. The only difference when it comes to steaming something like a pudding or something with baking powder or self-raising flour in is that you do need to steam it without pressure for the first part of the cooking time, just so that it will rise. So this is experimental, but I'm steaming for 15 minutes with the lid on, but not under pressure, and then bringing it up to pressure, turning the heat right down and pressure cooking it for half an hour. I hope that if you don't have a pressure cooker and aren't familiar with how they work, that this all just sounds like garbled nonsense. So we've already cut down the cooking time from over an hour and a half to 45 minutes, but now I'm also going to show you a modern day cheat. So this is a super fast way of making a steam pudding these days. First of all, I'm using the exact same recipe and preparation technique, except I'm putting jam in the bottom this time. And I'm going to cover the top in cling film and microwave this on full power for 4 minutes. Anna, if you could make a pudding in 4 minutes, why would you spend 45 minutes or 90 minutes? Well, the texture isn't as good, some people would say. So I'm going to try both of these next to each other and give you my verdict. As an excuse to eat pudding. So the second method of low energy cooking I'm going to try today is using a hay box.
Is to use a hay box. You need a large wooden box like this. Any solid box will do.
This is really the 1940s equivalent of a slow cooker, except that while a slow cooker uses a very small amount of energy, the hay box uses none at all. So it's basically a very heavily insulated box. So what you would do is you would bring a stew or a soup or something up to the boil, and then immediately insulate it and just let it cook for a few hours in its own residual heat. Hay boxes weren't a new invention in the 1940s, but they did have a big moment of popularity, so I think it's relevant. So the first thing you'd need for a hay box in the 40s would be a biggish box with a lid. This would usually be wood, but I have seen modern day people using like insulated picnic cool boxes for this, which just seems like a super smart idea. And also I've read about people using like deep kitchen drawers. I'm using this random little antique wooden trunk that, as you can see, I started sanding the shitty paint off and never finished. Something we all have in our houses. It's probably not really deep enough to be packed with enough insulation, but like, you know, what am I supposed to do? Like build a wooden box from scratch? That was what I originally planned to do, and I managed to talk myself out of it. Please clap. And it's getting filled with hay. It actually smells really nice. This is where Rioma's going to be sleeping from now on, when he doesn't behave himself, which is all the time. Again, not really a relatable modern solution, but you can use wool insulation, blankets, towels. A lot of people nowadays use sleeping bags. There's something on the market called a Wonder Bag, which is basically a commercially produced version of this. I'm layering towels over the top so that I don't end up eating hay, even though that would be funny. The recipe I'm cooking for this is a vegetable and oatmeal goulash. This is very straightforward. It's a mix of root vegetables all diced up, and they're getting browned off a bit in a pan with some oil, or dripping if you're really dedicated to historical accuracy. Add 50 grams or 2 ounces of oatmeal, some paprika and herbs, it just says very vaguely, so I'm using like mixed herbs and adding a couple of bay leaves. salt, pepper and enough stock to cover it. It asks for meat extract or a stock cube, so I'm using a vegan meat flavoured stock cube just to confuse everyone around me. This comes up to a rolling boil, and then you can either leave it simmering on the heat for the hour that the recipe suggests, or you can move at the speed of light before your heat dissipates and whack this in the hay box. The general rule of thumb seems to be that things take about 3 times as long to cook in the hay box, so I'm forgetting about this for about 3 hours. By which time I really hope my vegetables will be cooked, and I can just give it a quick blast on the stove to bring it back up to heat before I eat it. I'm going to accompany these with mince slices, which is a very quick and easy recipe to kind of pad out your meat rations. This is 225 grams or 8 ounces of mince, I'm using vegan mince, with 110 grams or 4 ounces of leftover mashed potato and the same amount of stale breadcrumbs plus salt and pepper. Turn out onto a floured board and roll into an oblong about 1/4 of an inch thick. I don't know how thick that is. I only know 5/8 of an inch because of sewing. Cut into slices and fry in a small quantity of hot fat or grill for 5 to 7 minutes. I snuck that recipe in. Themes are irrelevant. And the last energy saving method is not to use the oven at all. You would think there would be lots of no-bake recipes in the 40s when we're supposed to be saving energy, but no, I had to really work for this. Like, as a society, we had not evolved as far as fridge cakes. But Marguerite Patten had. I'm starting with 8 ounces or 225 grams of digested biscuits, that's graham crackers, American. And then I'm melting 3 ounces or 85 grams of dark chocolate. Technically, I guess before microwaves you would have to use the stove for this, but I pretend I do not see it. Once it's cooled down a little, beat in 3 ounces or 85 grams of margarine, 1 ounce or 25 grams of caster sugar, some vanilla and a tablespoon of golden syrup, or whatever syrup you have. Everything gets combined and put into a 7-inch cake tin, and that gets to chill for several hours or overnight to set up. I now tragically have to reckon with the fact that because I'm moving house, I got rid of loads of like old battered cake tins, and my 7-inch tin was one of them. So this is a 5-inch tin. It's going to be a really tall cake and I feel good about it. Oh, bollocks. My gran actually used to make, well no, my family still makes a recipe very similar to this, except that we just top it with an obscene amount of chocolate. Whereas this has like a fancy little buttercream. So, like, I'm humouring you, Margarita, but I can't imagine this is going to be better. So this is 2 ounces or 50 grams of margarine with 4 ounces or 100 grams of icing sugar and a bit of vanilla, with a couple of tablespoons of milk to reach a firm spreading consistency. And finally, it gets decorated with an optional couple of tablespoons of chocolate drops. Okay, it is time to test the outcome of the hay box. This has had about 3 hours, so in theory, everything should be cooked. I'm not sure. Oh, look! There's like a lot of damp on the outside, which tells me that the heat has escaped. But I can still feel it. It's warm to the touch, like even through the towels, which means I didn't insulate it well enough, but oh, this is going to be messy. So let's have a look. It's still hot, like piping hot to the touch, which is kind of mad. And it looks like, see the steam coming off it. That's been in this box for 3 hours. It looks like it needs a stir. It looks like it wants some of the, oh, there's hay in it. It looks like it wants some of the liquid like boiling off it real quick. But I would put that on the heat for like 3 minutes and I think that's going to be ready to serve. Let me stick a knife in the vegetables and see if they're cooked. That looks like that's the potato, I think. That's completely cooked. Oh my god, that's insane. Like, look at the steam that's coming off it. That's worked so well. I'm gonna put the lid back on. I've got a little bit of time to prepare some other stuff, so it can sit for a little bit longer. But it's working. I mean, I didn't expect it not to work. Like, I have some faith in, like, our ancestors. Do you know what I mean? Interestingly, the microwave pudding has come out looking like this. The cling film has sort of vacuum packed itself. I'm suspending judgment until I try it. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world. I'm sorry for giving you a microwave method and then immediately taking it away again, but this is 1,000 times better. Like, look at that. You can see how much that has risen just compared to the microwave method. Like, and you can kind of see the sponginess inside it. This is what a steamed pudding is supposed to look like. Oh, all right, disagree. The hay box worked so much better than I anticipated. I was doing it and I was like, this is more of a novelty thing. Like, I'm not expecting to do this again. That said, now I have all this hay. Like, I can just keep putting things in my box of hay that I now own. Why would I not put things in my box of hay? I should have thought ahead, similar to a pressure cooker or a slow cooker. Obviously the liquid doesn't boil off, so it was a lot more liquidy than I expected it to be. I should have factored that in, but I didn't. But now I know. But all the same, I would cook this again. I would cook it with some curry powder and some cumin and some turmeric, because it's not bad, but it is like very mild in flavour. That's a nice euphemism for bland. But the idea of it is great, and using oatmeal to thicken it up and like pad it out a little bit, very smart. I'm into it. I'm genuinely a really big fan of these mint slices. I didn't think they were going to be much of anything, but they're really nice, and especially with sort of a soupy, stewy, like vegetable side dish like the goulash. They look a lot like slices of Spam, and I think, like, in the picture I've seen of this goulash being made, it's served with slices of Spam, but it's much more interesting and very adaptable and very cheap and quick. And I'm genuinely really pleased with it. Also, what a great way to make like a relatively small amount of meat, in inverted commas, feed like, I mean, I could feed easily 8 people with these mint slices, probably more if I gave people 2 each. Like, that's such an efficient way to make meat go further if that's what you're trying to do. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was really rooting for the microwave jam pudding to be as good as the steamed one. You can see straight away how gluey the texture is. Gluey is the only word I can think of for it. It's also not risen as much, which, considering that was my concern doing the steamed pudding in the pressure cooker, was that it wouldn't rise properly. Like, I was wrong. I am so happy to have been wrong. Like, I have not made a steamed pudding for 100 years. I'm very old. Because I don't want to sit and steam something for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And now I can make a steamed syrup pudding in 45 minutes. And I'm genuinely filled with glee at the prospect. Like, that worked out so much better than I thought. The microwave one, huge disappointment. I'm sorry I gave you that and then I immediately took it away. It's not the worst option in the world. If it's your only way of having a steamed pudding, frankly, you could put custard on this. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, you would still have a good pudding out of it. But if you can do a steamed version or a pressure cooker version, like, what a life hack. Also, egg free. Like, I was so excited about pressure cooking a pudding that I forgot there's no eggs in it. Like, that's delightful. I'm so pleased. And finally, the fridge cake. You can see where the buttercream is split a little bit because I did a substandard job at beating it, but I feel okay about it. I'm not really concerned. We are my pipe down, it's not tea time. Unless you want a small piece of fridge cake. It's really similar to my grand's recipe. It's really similar to my grand's recipe. The only reason I know it isn't my grand's recipe is A, the topping, and B, I know that my grand's has an egg in because historically I've had to remove the egg. So I would probably, making this again, add like a little bit of milk or something to like loosen it up a bit. Like, it just needs a little bit more liquid to help it stick together. That's all it needs. Add a little slosh of milk, you're golden. And I'm not even mad about the buttercream. I'm kind of into it. It's a change. What's wrong with you? You've got a wet foot, you stood in the wet. I can't help you with it. Stop tap dancing. He gets a wet foot and then he just like sits there and bangs his foot on the floor like a kangaroo. And he's been doing this for 40 minutes. Be normal. I made a hay box today, so maybe I'm not qualified to say that. Horrible. You done? So he's very good throughout the day, and then right at the end of the videos, as it gets a bit later, he's like, now's the time I'd rather be in your arms more than anything else in the universe. Okay. It's a bit much. Thank you for watching. He's doing it again! Absolutely the best moment. That's why we're here, baby girl. Do I have chocolate on my eyebrow? Mate, this is embarrassing.